Welcome to TRT World and Podgorica, the capital of Montenegro. I'm Semir Sejfovic, and this week's Across the Balkans, we focus on climate change. The team will show you how countries, governments, and the population in the Balkans are affected. Since the Paris Climate Agreement, sweeping geopolitical shifts, financial turmoil, technological breakthroughs, and energy crisis have put its real-world impact to the test. We speak with Laurent Mesbah, a sustainable development specialist and co-founder of Bosnia's clean energy initiative, Vedra Budućnost, who's 25 years advising on biodiversity, ecosystem services, and climate governance across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Balkans. Dr. Laurent Mesbah, thank you for talking to TRT World and the show Across the Balkans. How do you, as a scientist, convince those who are still in doubt?
Science is really very clearly indicating that during the last 100 years, the climate has been warming globally. Like the Earth, planet Earth's temperature has been rising to a significant level. So that's globally. So it's based on measurements, and the science that is dealing with that is called meteorology, and there is a UN agency for meteorology that is coordinating scientists from around the world who are gathering data and producing publications, and they really show clearly that the Earth has been warming at a rate which is really fast, that didn't happen in the history of the planet, such a high rate of change. But now we are witnessing a change that is very fast, and it is quite clearly proven that it's due to human activities. So what does it mean exactly, human activities? It means since the Industrial Revolution we have been burning fossil fuels like coal, gas and oil to such an extent that we're producing the so-called greenhouse gas. And with greenhouse gases, most of it is carbon dioxide, CO2, that goes in the atmosphere, that accumulates to a higher level than the normal level. Now the greenhouse gas is moving to a higher level than normal, and then the result is the temperature is going up.
How much of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement was implemented since?
It's the first time that every country to sign this agreement, where the Paris Agreement was about making sure that the temperature on planet Earth does not go beyond 2 degrees rise compared to the levels back the pre-industrial levels. So now currently the temperature has rise to 1.5 degrees more than it was. The Paris Agreement then had a recommendation that we should actually avoid going beyond 1.5, and we have reached 1.5 now. So since the Paris Agreement, we know there's already 10 years have passed, and when we look at the data, we can see the greenhouse gas is just increasing, and the temperature is also increasing. So we can, of course, say that the Paris Agreement is not on the right track, because the direction it's taken is not according to the agreement that was made.
How did the US pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement affect its implementation?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's obvious then when the big players move out of the agreement, it doesn't look like it's stable. And you would expect the main polluters, the main emitters to show the example so that everyone on board can follow that. So there's clearly a lack of unity, a lack of strategy for the long term, and a lack of political commitment. The problem is that if we look at countries, emission per country, many countries, like many of the rich countries, including Europe, have now outsourced their industry production to other countries. So you don't count these emissions anymore. They're counted to the other country, including China. China, who is the factory of most of the countries in the world. So we need to look at it globally. We cannot just look one country and point to that country is responsible. It has to be a global effort, united. There's no escape to that. It has to be collective, global.
What are the challenges governments in the Balkans face in order to implement clean energy or other means of energy in the region?
many countries in the Balkans still rely very strongly on coal, even though there's a lot of hydropower. The challenge is to move out of this dependency on coal and to produce enough energy to run the economy based on other sources, which are renewable sources. Wind energy is now developing, and solar is also growing very fast. So there's a potential, really a clear potential to move out of fossil fuel energy and to depend and to rely on renewables. But a combination of different forms of renewables is really important. There are technology, there's also great potential on thermal energy, geothermal in the Balkan. So that source of hot water can be used to produce steam, which can also turn the turbine and then generate electricity. So energy is one of the sectors of climate change for the Balkan, but energy is not the only problem for climate change. It's not the only source of emission. There are all the sectors of the economy are also impacting emissions, and transport, agriculture. That's what we generally call the green economy. If we want to move into a more sustainable society in relation to energy, but also to all the other sectors of activity, we need to move into a transition into a more renewable form of economic activity.
How will the rise of sea level and sea level temperatures impact the Balkans in particular?
So the Balkan is impacted by climate change. It's already very clearly visible. Just to give two clear examples, last October in Jablanica there was a landslide due to heavy rain over a period of 24 hours, the equivalent of 6 months fell, and that's due to a change in the climate pattern around the Mediterranean. This strong cyclone at the end of the summer, because the water temperature of the Mediterranean, the Adriatic, becomes warmer, it moved up to 30 degrees in some places. That results in a strong cyclones. These cyclones bring up more water, more energy, and the winds are stronger, and the amount of rain can also be stronger. So this is a clear one of the impacts of warming of the Mediterranean Sea. But the other result can also be extended drought and more irregular precipitations. Another impact in the Balkan is also because of warming, the winters become milder and you have less snowfall, and that also impacts ski resorts, and the winter activities for winter economic activities can be reduced. The ski season is now shorter than before.
What are your predictions? Are we as humans able to come together in order to prevent further global warming?
Well, I mean, the answer to this question is already no, because we know we haven't stopped it so far, and the temperature is rising globally. And I said, even if you stop the emission, even if we stop emissions now, which we cannot do because we need time, temperature will continue to rise because the planet has a very strong inertia, and it's such a big mass. Temperature doesn't stop like this. When you heat up your oven, it's not because you close the button that the oven is cold. So it takes a lot of time to cool down, and at the same time we are not able, because we're not united enough, to make strong decisions and to implement them quickly. We don't see the urgency, so we don't see the life threatening, but some people do, and that's what happened in Jablanica. The people died. So it's not just an abstract view. There are real dangers. So there are more places which become uninhabitable. So there will be more and more climate migrants. We know that. The question is, some people who are losing hope, they say we just need to learn to adapt because there's nothing we can do about it. I don't agree with that. I think we can still do something to avoid making it worse, because if we don't do it, it will become worse and worse. So we can act, but at the same time we need to be realistic and we need to learn to adapt, because these changes are happening. So I think this is what science is telling us. Now, it's important to follow science, because science is not politics. It's not telling opinions. Science is telling us about the facts, and it's telling us what is happening. And if we want to live in reality, not in the fantasy world, we need to listen to science. And we also need to think about future generations.
Albania's coastline is rapidly changing due to erosion, rising sea levels, and growing development. From the sunken islands of Frank Josef to Duris's crumbling shores, Omer Saraci explores how natural and human forces are reshaping the coast and what it means for the country's future.
Rising sea levels are reshaping the Albanian seashore, from the pine forests of Velipoja in the north to the bustling tourist hub of Durrës in the south. The climate crisis and unregulated development are quietly redrawing the country's natural borders. One of the most symbolic victims of this transformation was the island of Franz Josef, a name still vivid in the memory of local fishermen and once listed in tourist guides, now submerged beneath the waters of the Buna River and erased from the landscape.
Këtu ka qenë ishulli Franz Josefit, 100% nga ndryshuar gjitha. Ja, diku manaj atje, para 2-3 vjeç krijoi një ishull tjetër, por edhe atë e zhduku para një viti, si më thonë, e man 2 vjet, edhe e hek pastaj prap.
It is projected that by 2030 over 1,080 square kilometers of coastal habitat could be at risk of flooding. Without stronger regulation and targeted environmental interventions, Albania risks losing vital parts of its natural heritage.
Behind me, the waters of the Buna River now hide what once was the island of Franz Josef, a lush bird-filled paradise named by Austro-Hungarian cartographers in the 19th century. Since 2014, this 19.5-hectare island has completely disappeared, swallowed by the rising sea levels and intensified erosion. Experts say human interference like dam construction sealed its fate.
Erozioni në përgjithësi, I cili në segmentet e caktuara godet vjen prekatare, krijon një erozion jashtëzakonisht shumë të madh dhe pikërisht pika delikate për sektorin e përketit të Velipojës ku ndodhemi ne aktualisht ka qenë pikërisht delta e Bunës. Në 2015 kanë qenë momentet e fundit të ekzistencës së këtij ishulli dhe pastaj ka ndryshuar I gjithë konfiguracioni I deltës së Bunës në përgjithësi. Mungesa e sedimenteve, ndërhyrja shpesh pa kriter në rrjetin hidrografik, në rrjetet e lumeve, marrja e këtyre sedimenteve nuk bën gjë tjetër vetëm se prish ekuilibrat e caktuar natyror dhe pastaj hasemi pikërisht me këto fenomene negative në territor.
In Velipoja, the sea now advances over 5 meters inland every year, transforming coastal forests into marine graveyards. Waves are gnawing at century-old pines, toppling them one storm at a time.
Njeriu apo natyra? Cili është armiku?
Është një kombinim. Kemi ndryshime të mëdha klimatike, qoftë në valzimin detar, në elementet e temperaturave, por dashje pa dashje edhe njeriu po bëhet një prej faktorëve negativ që po ndërhyjnë në natyrë. Dhe dashje pa dashje natyra e kthen atë restën e saj, domethënë pikërisht në territor.
In recent decades, Albania has seen a rapid expansion of small hydropower plants along its upper river streams. While these projects have brought notable economic benefits, they are now causing long-term consequences for river flows and environment, sealing the fate of once thriving downstream ecosystems. Dams are now blocking the natural flow of sediment needed to sustain river deltas, shrinking wetlands and loss of diversity. As a result, deltas are degrading and the coastline is becoming increasingly vulnerable to sea level rise and extreme weather events. The situation is even more alarming further south, in the coastal city of Durrës, which is quite literally running out of ground.
Here in Durrës, the coastline is vanishing nearly 70 meters, lost in just 16 years. The rapid and uncontrolled urbanization with hotels and restaurants built right up to the shore is accelerating erosion and weakening natural defenses. As sea levels rise, the battle between concrete and nature is threatening not just the environment, but also the future of Albania's tourism economy.
Global sea levels rose by 10 centimeters between 1993 and 2023. In Albania, the effects have been especially severe. During the same period, tourist numbers soared from 5.9 million in 2018 to over 10 million in 2023. Construction along the coastline has surged, often without proper planning or environmental oversight.
Sot jemi në një paralelizëm, jemi në një kamion që po ecë me 200 km/h dhe në momentin që do frenoj, për inerci do vazhdoj ky fenomen. Pra është e njëjta gjë me erozionin që ne shohim sot, nëse sot fillojmë të marrim masa, do shohim që impakti i këtyre masave inxhinierike do të jetë pas një dekade, pasi nuk mund të shohim masa të menjëhershme ose impakt të menjëhershëm, pikërisht për fakti që ka fshim, një erozion kaq të avancuar, saqë do duhet fillim ndalimi dhe më pas rekuperimi i gjithë territorit.
Scrama explains that over the past 25-30 years, around 130 meters of coastline have been lost in the delta of River Ishëm near Durrës, much of it due to the gravel removed from riverbeds, disrupting the natural balance.
Nga ana tjetër, kemi gjithmonë më tepër një zhvillim të pjesës Bregdetit, dhe kjo ndërhyn automatikisht te pjesa e ekuilibrit të natyrës, pra ne kemi Bregdeti, i cili është ndërtuar nga Bregdeti, Duna dhe Pisha. Në momentin që ne presim pishat dhe ndërtojmë struktura inxhinierike, kjo bën që rëra që akumulohet nëpër Duna të mos shtrihet dhe të mos fitojë më terren ndaj detit, por të ketë gjithmonë më pak rërë mbi Duna, gjithmonë më pak Duna dhe automatikisht gjithmonë më pak Bregdet, pasi deti po hyn dhe po penetron brenda në tokën.
Sand dunes and coastal forests are nature's shield against erosion. Once they're replaced by concrete, the coast becomes extremely vulnerable. What we are witnessing is the collapse of an entire natural defense system. From Velipoja in the north to Durrës in the south, Albania's coastline is under siege, not only from the sea but also from within. Unless urgent action is taken to regulate construction and restore nature's barriers, Albania's coast and the livelihoods built upon it may soon exist only in memory. Omer Saraci, Across the Balkans, Durrës.
Croatia is increasingly adapting electrical cars. But as technology advances, new challenges emerge. While general accepted as being more environmentally friendly, the difficulty of putting out fires in these vehicles is of particular concern to firefighters. Teda Imamovic reports.
Firefighters from 6 countries met in Zagreb, Croatia, to establish best practice standards for safely extinguishing electric vehicle fires. It appears that these fires are more difficult to control. Compared to traditional combustion fuel vehicles, these fires burn hotter and longer and take much more retardant to put them out. This is mostly because of their high voltage battery systems and unique construction.
Ključno je izbjeći sve opasnosti jer gorenjem baterije stvaraju se opasni plinovi, može doći do eksplozije naravno plinova tih i zaštititi se i što prije ugasiti taj požar.
Accessing the batteries is a significant issue because they are usually held in a steel case. So, when engulfed in flames, these vehicles require specialized knowledge and skill to safely extinguish the fire.
Dosta kolega po svijetu ima taktiku i ostavi da izgori, zato što bateriju, ako prekinemo njeno izgaranje, ona je na neki način i dalje opasna za svoju okolinu. Znači mi hladimo bateriju izvana, skroz do točke dok ne spustimo temperaturu, dok ona ne izgubi svoju, znači električna energija se mora pretvoriti u toplinsku.
But these lithium-ion battery packs are very difficult to keep cool. Even after appearing to be turned off for 24 hours, they can generate enough heat to reignite.
We are concerned about the technology and how it's built and how to mitigate the fires. Fire services in America and in Europe. However, in New York City, we did data collection on lithium-ion battery fires. We had, in 2023, we had 268. I compared that to London. They had 279 in 2023, and they had about an additional 100 car fires.
As technology evolves, so too must the preparedness of our firefighting professionals. By acknowledging and addressing the challenges posed by fires in electric vehicles, we can work towards safer outcomes for all. Teda Imamovic, Across the Balkans.
With Eid celebrations now behind us, in the northern Montenegrin town of Rožaje, one man is taking a unique path to preserve cultural heritage and revive the centuries-old tradition of bazaars. Edip Šaljić, an academic and devoted collector, has transformed part of his house into a display of traditional artifacts that capture the Ottoman-era way of life, once widespread in the region. Mirjana Miladinovic reports.
They say identity is not what you inherit, but what you preserve. In the Montenegrin town of Rože, one man built more than just a room. He built a bridge between centuries. Edip Šaljić, an academic and a guardian of tradition, has turned a corner of his home into a living memory, a space he calls simply the Alaturka room.
Ova soba je za mene, da napravim jednu paradigmu, nešto između mezara predaka i emaneta koje imamo prema potomcima. A to između predaka i naših potomaka smo mi. I ova soba za mene nije ništa manje, već identitet. Vremena je trebalo dosta. Ne u smislu zidova i opremanja, ali više od toga mi je trebalo vremena da ja osjetim da sam dobio ambijent u kojem uživam. Neke sam kupovao, neke sam dobio na poklon, neke šetajući internetom vidim, stupim u komunikaciju, ljudi mi jave, neko prodaje.
Each and every one of them has a special value to him.
Prelja koja je iza mene, to je prelja od moje rahmetli nane. Nanu koju ja nisam zapamtio, ali koju pamtim kroz priču. Žena koja je bila jaka, žena koja je bila mudra, koja je bila mekteb za cijelu mahalu, koja je učila tu djecu veri, tradiciji. I kad gledam nju, odmah vidim staru, hrabru, jaku ženu, ne biram očima, biram srcem.
Because of that, he believes that whoever comes feels it too.
Svi dođu bučni, izađu tihi. Tako da svi kad dođu ovdje osjete da pripadaju ovom tlu. Osjete da mi pripadamo ovdje, da su naši djedovi živjeli ovdje. Ovo je cijela čaršija u malom, nekadašnja čaršija. Tako da ja ovdje ne dolazim, ja se ovdje vraćam. Vraćam se radi sebe, radi svoje duše, vraćam se da dopunim baterije, da dobijem snagu za nešto novo.
Edip's next vision is larger, to build a cultural space with reading rooms, sleeping areas, a full traditional archive.
Rožajci su poznati po tome da su primali sve izbeglice. Sandžaklije su poznate po tome da smo primali misafire čak i onda kada nismo imali dovoljno za svoje porodice. Ako Bog da ubrzo, nadam se da će ubrzo i to zaživjeti ovdje.
Some of the items he brought or he got like a present from Turkey. The ones he put in the room he knows were used in this region.
Neko ko nema dovoljno znanja će reći sad to ne pripada Bošnjacima, sad to je tuđa kultura. Ne, to je ono što su mi kažemo Hošgeldin, oni kažu Hošgeldin, mi kažemo Bujrum, oni kažu Bujrum. Naše nane, majke nose iste šamije, isti nakid, ista ili slična nam je kuhinja, čak i ti alat, oruđe. Mi s tim ljudima mislim da ne postoje dva naroda, da su isti damar kao što smo mi i Turci. Mi ovdje baštinimo nešto što više pripada Turcima nego nama, a što su oni zaboravili. Bujrum!
Local officials see Edip's room as an opportunity.
Možda u nekim dijelovima grada ili možda nekih porodica više ima tog običaja i tradicije nego možda i u samoj Turskoj. Tako da to je jedan dovoljan razlog da pozovemo i turske turiste da dođu kod nas da vide jednostavno kako su njihovi preci nekad boravili i vladali u ovom kraju, da istraže tu našu istoriju, odnosno našu njihovu istoriju.
He believes more tourists from Turkey would visit Rože if they knew.
Očekujem da vlasnik ovog kažem, dijela i ovog entuzijazma koji je dao sebi za pravo i snage ovoliko da sačuva ovoliku zbirku ovih eksponata, da će proširiti i da će ovo postati dostupno za šire mase ljudi. Tako da može biti ovo jedan jako dobar motiv za dolazak i boravak turista iz Turske.
A kad otvorim ova vrata, ja se osjećam kao da sam ušao u neki drugi svijet. Kao da sam ušao u svijet gdje se kahva pije sporije, gdje srce kuca sporije.
Sometimes preserving identity doesn't take grand monuments. It takes intention, memory and love. Mirjana Vladinović, Across the Balkans, Rože, Montenegro.
Thank you for watching TRT World and letting us once again take you across the Balkans. That is all from the team for this week. We hope to see you next time. Bye-bye from Montenegro and its sunny capital, Podgorica.